Mexico City, 2019. Inside a modest apartment in the historic neighborhood of Cayocan, something impossible was about to be revealed. It started like any other evening. Santiago Morales, a boy just 4 years old, was sitting cross-legged in front of the television, quietly watching a documentary about deep space. Suddenly, he raised his small finger, pointed at the screen, and uttered words that would make his parents' blood run cold. "Dad, NASA is lying. There are buildings on the moon. I've seen them." His father, Roberto, a software engineer who valued logic and facts, immediately lowered the volume. His mother, Patricia, stopped preparing dinner and walked slowly toward the living room with a nervous smile, assuming it was just the vivid imagination of a child. "What did you say, my love?" Patricia asked gently. Santiago turned his head toward her. His dark eyes held a level of intensity and seriousness that was deeply disturbing for a child of his age. "It's not imagination, Mom," he said firmly. "There are structures in the Tycho Crater. Lunar coordinates, 43 degrees south, 11 degrees west. There are metallic towers there, approximately 47 meters high." The air seemed to leave the room. Roberto's hand slipped, and he dropped his coffee mug, which shattered on the floor. Patricia stood paralyzed. "Santiago, where on earth did you hear those names?" Roberto asked, his voice trembling. "I didn't hear it, Dad. I just know it," the boy replied. "And I also know that the Apollo 20 mission wasn't actually canceled like they told everyone. It reached the moon in August 1976. They found something there, something they never told us." Roberto and Patricia exchanged a look of pure dread. They were aware of the Apollo 20 conspiracy theories that circulated in the dark corners of the internet, but they had never spoken about such things in front of Santiago. The boy didn't even know how to use a computer or a smartphone. "Son, how do you know about Apollo 20? Roberto insisted. Without a word, Santiago stood up from the sofa and walked to his bedroom. He returned seconds later, clutching a sketchbook. He flipped to a specific page and showed it to them. The drawing was breathtakingly detailed. It depicted the lunar surface with astonishing accuracy. Precise craters, jagged rock formations, and in the very center, an unmistakably artificial structure. It looked like a massive tower with panels on its sides. Next to the drawing, in messy, childish handwriting, were the notes: 43 Candy CREs 11 Alt, 47 millimeters. Patricia felt like she was going to faint. "When did you draw this?" "Last night, after the dream," Santiago said softly. "The man in the silver suit showed me. He told me it was important for people to know the truth." As an engineer, Roberto recognized that the coordinates were written in a technically correct format. There was no logical way a 4-year-old should possess this knowledge. "What man, Santiago? Who showed you this?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. "The astronaut, the one who died to protect the secret. He told me his name, but I promised I would only say it when we find the proof." An absolute silence fell over the home, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock and the distant hum of traffic. Roberto, a skeptic by nature, but now gripped by a haunting curiosity, decided to investigate. He opened his laptop and searched for information on the Tycho Crater. The coordinates Santiago provided matched exactly with a region that had been the subject of intense speculation in underground ufology forums. But what he found next left him breathless. He discovered a NASA archive photo, partially censored with black pixels, taken during an unmanned mission in 2009. In the uncensored portion of the image, barely visible but undeniably there, was a vertical anomaly, a structure that, when scaled, measured approximately 47 meters. "My God," Roberto whispered, turning the screen toward Patricia. Santiago walked over and nodded slowly. "That's the one, Dad, but there is more. Much more. And if we don't tell the truth, they will keep it hidden forever." Patricia hugged her son tightly, caught between fear, wonder, and total disbelief. But this was only the beginning. Over the coming days, Santiago would reveal information so precise and so impossible to know that space authorities from around the world would soon come looking to silence them. The question that would haunt this family was simple yet terrifying. How could a 4-year-old boy know secrets that not even NASA has officially confirmed? There are structures in the Tycho Crater. Lunar coordinates: 43 south, 11 west. Metallic towers, 47 meters tall. As those words left Santiago's lips, the air seemed to vanish from the room. Roberto's coffee mug hit the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. "Santiago, where did you hear that?" Roberto asked, his voice visibly trembling. "I didn't hear it, Dad. I just know," the boy replied calmly. The Apollo 20 mission wasn't canceled. They reached the moon in August 1976. They found something they never told us. Roberto and Patricia exchanged a look of pure terror. Apollo 20 was a deep web conspiracy theory, something they had never not even once discussed in front of their son. Santiago stood up, walked to his room, and returned with a sketchbook. He flipped to a specific page. It was a masterpiece of detail. Precise lunar craters, jagged rock formations, and in the center, an undeniably artificial tower with panels. Beside the drawing, in messy handwriting, were technical notations. 43 SIDS 11 Glory Dow, Alt 47 millimeters. Patricia felt like she was going to faint. "When did you draw this?" "Last night. The man in the silver suit showed me. He said it was important for the world to know the truth." As an engineer, Roberto recognized the format. A 4-year-old simply shouldn't know how to write technical coordinates. "What man, Santiago?" The boy's eyes welled with tears. "The astronaut. The one who died to protect the secret." Driven by a haunting curiosity, Roberto opened his laptop. He searched for the Tycho Crater. The coordinates Santiago gave matched a specific anomaly zone discussed in ufology forums. Then he found a grainy NASA archive photo, partially censored with black pixels. In the visible area, there it was, a vertical anomaly measuring approximately 47 meters. "My God," Roberto whispered. Santiago just nodded. "That's it, Dad. But there's more. Much more." By the next morning, Roberto hadn't slept a wink. His desk was cluttered with empty coffee cups and printouts of lunar maps. When Patricia walked in, she found him pale, his eyes sunken. "Did you find anything?" she asked. "I found too much," Roberto said, turning the screen. On it were declassified documents from 1976. They mentioned Apollo 20, officially suspended due to budget cuts. But then he showed her a grainy video leaked in 2007 by a supposed ex-NASA employee. In the video, a voice with a thick accent said, "Coordinates confirmed. Tycho 43 south, 11 west." Patricia covered her mouth. It was exactly what Santiago had said. At that moment, the boy walked into the room barefoot, rubbing his eyes. He sat between them and pointed at the screen. "That's William Rutledge," he said naturally. "He was the commander." Roberto nearly fell out of his chair. "How do you know that name?" "He told me last night. He showed me more. There is an ancient spaceship in the Del Porte crater. It's 3.8 kilometers long. It's been crashed there for millions of years." "Santiago, this isn't a game," Patricia cried, her voice breaking. The boy looked at her with a profound sadness. "I know, Mom. That's why William chose me. Because adults are too afraid to tell the truth." Roberto frantically searched for Del Porte, crater, and spaceship. He found endless conspiracy threads, but nothing official. Until he saw it, a 2019 high-resolution photo from China's Change 4 mission. It showed the Del Porte crater with an elongated anomaly, exactly 3.8 kilometers long. Santiago grabbed a pencil and a blank sheet of paper. In seconds, he sketched a cigar-shaped vessel with oval windows and strange symbols on the hull. "It's called the Mother," Santiago whispered. The astronauts went inside. They found bodies and technology that would change everything. Patricia hugged him, tears streaming down her face. "Why you, my love? Why is this happening to you?" Santiago looked up with eyes that seemed much older than 4 years. "Because William says I was part of that mission in another life. And now I have to finish what he started." Overwhelmed, Roberto closed his laptop. They needed help. They needed someone who could verify this madness without calling them insane. He grabbed his phone and called his best friend, Dr. Martin Ochoa, an astrophysicist at the Unam Institute of Astronomy. "Martin, you need to come over. Now. It's about my son." And the moon. 2 hours later, Dr. Ochoa was at the door. A 50-year-old man with graying hair and thick glasses, he looked more concerned than curious. He was carrying a briefcase and a look of deep skepticism. Little did he know, his entire world was about to be turned upside down. "Roberto, this better be important. I canceled a major conference for this," Dr. Martin Ochoa said as he stepped into the apartment. Roberto led him in without a word. Patricia was sitting on the sofa, her arms wrapped tightly around Santiago. The boy looked at the doctor with a calm, piercing curiosity. "Martin, sit down," Roberto began. "What you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about reality." For the next 20 minutes, Roberto laid it all out. The drawings, the precise coordinates, the classified names, and the structures. Martin listened with growing skepticism, shaking his head in total disbelief. "Roberto, you're an engineer," Martin sighed. "You have to understand this is impossible. A 4-year-old child simply cannot." Santiago interrupted him. "Dr. Ochoa, you worked on the lunar mapping project in 2015. You found 47 structural anomalies that were never reported to the public. Anomaly number 23 is in the Mare Triangulatatis. Coordinates 0.67 north, 23.47 east." Martin froze. Every bit of color drained from his face. "How? How could you possibly know that?" "That project is highly classified." Santiago stood up and walked toward the doctor. "Because William Rutledge showed me the files. I also know that you have nightmares about what you saw in those images structures that shouldn't exist." Martin's hands began to shake. No one knew about those nightmares, not even his wife. "Show me the drawings," Martin whispered, his voice hoarse. He examined Santiago's sketchbook with wide eyes. The details were technically flawless. The proportions were correct. The coordinates were exact. There is no logical explanation for this. Santiago pointed to a specific sketch. "This is Anomaly 23. It's dome-shaped, 340 meters in diameter. You saw it and convinced yourself it was just an image processing error." Martin dropped the notebook and rubbed his eyes. "Who are you, really?" he whispered to the child. "I am Santiago," the boy replied in a voice that sounded far too old. "But I was also someone else. Someone who saw the truth and died before he could tell the world." Martin looked at Roberto and Patricia. "We need to verify this. I have access to the National Observatory database. If this child can predict what is at coordinates that only 3 people in Mexico know about ... double quotes, Santiago nodded. "I can do it. But after that, Dr. Ochoa, you will have to help us. Because NASA won't want this to get out, and they will come for us." The silence in the room was heavy and ominous. Martin took a deep breath. "Fine. Let's go to the observatory. Now." None of them knew that at that exact moment, a silent alarm had been triggered in a secure office in Houston, Texas. Someone was asking dangerous questions about the moon, and that someone was a 4-year-old boy. They reached the National Astronomical Observatory on the outskirts of Mexico City at midnight. Using his high-level credentials, Martin led them through a back door. The lab was empty. "We have full access to the database now," Martin whispered as he booted up the massive servers. The room was bathed in the blue glow of 6 giant screens. He typed rapidly, entering encrypted access codes. Okay, Santiago. Let's put this to the test. Give me lunar coordinates that you couldn't have found in any book or website. Show me the areas they won't let the public see. Santiago stepped toward the main screen without a second of hesitation. Giordano Bruno Crater, far side. Coordinates 35.9 north, 102.8 east. Crater depth 22 kilometers. There are 3 pyramidal structures on the southern rim. The largest one has a base of 180 meters. Martin entered the data. It took seconds for the high-resolution image to load a shot taken by the Chinese Chang's E4 probe, never released to the public. When the image appeared, Martin gasped. There they were, 3 perfect pyramidal formations. The software's automatic measurement confirmed it. Exactly 180 meters at the base. Patricia stumbled. Roberto had to catch her. Another one, Martin said, his voice cracking. Give me another. Santiago closed his eyes. Lunar South Pole, Shackleton Crater. There is a tunnel that descends 340 meters below the surface. The entrance is rectangular, 12 meters wide by 18 meters high. Exact coordinates, 89.9 south, 132.1 east. Martin searched frantically. He found classified images from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. He zoomed in, and there was a perfect, dark rectangular opening. The screen read, 12.3 meters by 18.1 meters. Tunnel depth, 341 meters. My God, Martin whispered. This is impossible. Impossible. Santiago continued, his voice hauntingly steady. And inside that tunnel, there is what you call the library. Wall panels covered in symbols, preserved technology. The astronauts of Apollo 20 photographed everything. The files are on NASA's Blackstone 7 server. File code LROPSR-089X. The Apollo 20 astronauts photographed everything, Santiago said, his voice as steady as an adult's. The images are stored on NASA's Blackstone 7 server. File code LROPSR-089X. Martin whipped around, staring at the child in disbelief. How do you know the name Blackstone? That's top secret. Officially, that server doesn't even exist. William showed me, Santiago replied simply. He copied the files before he died. Roberto stepped in, his face etched with anxiety. Martin, can you get into that server? No, it's impossible. It would require hacking NASA's deepest systems. It's illegal. We'd go to prison for the rest of our lives. In that exact moment, the observatory screens flickered and went black for 2 terrifying seconds. When they flared back to life, a message in blood-red letters blinked across the displays. Unauthorized access detected. Location tracked. Team en route. Patricia screamed. What does that mean? Martin's face went ghost white. It means they caught us. Someone is monitoring these searches in real time. Santiago grabbed his mother's hand. They're coming, Mom. The men in black. Just like William warned me. Roberto dashed to the window. In the distance, 3 black SUVs were tearing up the observatory's winding road at high speed. We have to go. Now. Martin scrambled to save the images onto a USB drive. Take this. It's the only evidence we have. They bolted through the back exit just as the vehicle screeched into the main parking lot. The question that terrified them all was simple. Who was chasing them? And how far would they go to protect the moon's secrets? Roberto's car sped through the empty, pre-dawn streets of Mexico City. Patricia held Santiago tight in the back seat, while Martin kept his eyes glued to the rearview mirror. Are they following us? Roberto asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I don't know, Martin replied, but we can't go home. They'll be waiting for us. Santiago remained eerily calm amidst the panic. We need to go to the Hotel Circuito in the Zona Rosa. Room 307. There is someone there who can help us. Roberto slammed on the brakes. What? How could you possibly know that? William told me. There's someone who has been waiting for this moment for years. Someone who knows the truth. Patricia looked at her son with tears in her eyes. Sweetie, this is too dangerous. We should go to the police. Santiago shook his head. The police can't help us, Mom. This is bigger than them. It's bigger than everyone. Martin took a deep breath. Let's do what the boy says. At this point, what do we have left to lose? 20 minutes later, they arrived at a faded old building on a side street. They parked a block away and walked quickly, constantly looking over their shoulders. Inside, a sleepy receptionist barely looked up as they hurried to the stairs. Room 307. Roberto knocked 3 times. Silence. He knocked again. The door creaked open slowly. A woman in her late 60s appeared, with pinned-back white hair and piercing green eyes. She looked at them with a mixture of shock and profound relief. You finally made it, she said with a thick American accent. Get inside quickly. The room was a fortress of information. The walls were covered in lunar maps, old grainy photographs, and technical documents. A laptop hummed on a desk, displaying deep space imagery. The woman locked the door and turned toward Santiago. Her eyes filled with tears. Is it you? Did you really come back? Santiago nodded. Hello, Leona. The woman collapsed to her knees and hugged the small boy, sobbing openly. I've waited so long. 52 years waiting for this sign. Roberto stepped forward, confused. Who are you? How do you know my son? The woman wiped her eyes and stood up. My name is Leona Snyder. I was a communications engineer at NASA for 30 years, and I worked directly with William Rutledge on the Apollo 20 mission. The room went silent. Martin stepped forward. Apollo 20 was canceled. It never happened. Leona smiled sadly. That's what they made us say. But it happened, Dr. Ochoa. And we found exactly what this boy is revealing now. She pulled a heavy metal box from under the bed. Inside were yellowed photographs, documents stamped top secret, and a small, strange rock with bizarre inscriptions. This is a sample William brought back from the Mother, the alien ship. We analyzed it in secret. It's 1.5 billion years old. Patricia sat on the bed, dizzy. This can't be real. Leona looked directly at Santiago. Tell me something only William and I knew. Something that proves you are really who I think you are. Santiago leaned in and whispered something into Leona's ear. The woman's face crumpled. She began to cry again, deep, heavy sobs. No one could have known that. No one. Except William. Leona hugged the boy again. It's true. You've returned. And now they are coming for you, just like they came for him. She closed the curtains and turned on a dim lamp, pulling a yellowed envelope sealed with red wax from the box. William gave me this before he died in 2016. He made me promise to only open it when the boy appeared. For years, I thought he was just losing his mind to illness. Now I understand. She broke the seal. Inside were photographs no human was ever meant to see. The first image showed the interior of an alien craft, metallic walls covered in symbols that defied any known language. Leona's hands trembled as she handed over the second photograph. It was even more disturbing than the first. It showed a mummified humanoid, being with feminine features, resting in what appeared to be a hibernation chamber. We called her Mona Lisa, Leona said, her voice cracking. She was about 1.65 meters tall, with bluish skin and strange cables connected to her head. She had been dead for millions of years, yet her body was perfectly preserved. Martin, a scientist, stared at the photos. Every fiber of his being wanted to scream that this was a fake, but the images were too detailed, too authentic to deny. Why hide this? The world has a right to know. Because it would change everything, Leona sighed. Religions, economies, power structures. Humanity wasn't ready then. Maybe it still isn't. Suddenly, Santiago climbed onto the chair and reached for the laptop. With a speed and skill impossible for a 4-year-old, He began to type. The access code for the Blackstone 7 server is Delta Romeo 77 Tango Eco. Santiago muttered while his small fingers flew across the keys. It has a triple firewall, but the back door is through port 8 on Tincho 847. Martin watched him, jaw dropped. That's impossible. A toddler shouldn't know advanced programming. I'm not just a child, Dr. Oshoa, Santiago said without looking up. I am also William's memory, and he knew exactly how to get in. The screen suddenly flooded with classified files, videos, photos, and blueprints. Santiago scrolled until he found a file named Ivafinarotlet. MP4. Watch this, he commanded. The video showed an astronaut inside the alien craft. The camera shook as it moved through a metallic hallway. Then, the voice of William Rutledge crackled through the speakers. Houston, this is Rutledge. I'm at level 3 of the structure. The walls are covered in inscriptions. They look like control panels. There's residual energy here. After millions of years, there's still power. The camera turned toward a circular room. In the center, a crystalline object was pulsing with a soft glow on a pedestal. My God, the voice in the video whispered. Is this some kind of energy core? It's alive. I can feel it. The transmission cut to static. That was the last official recording, Leona said, stopping the video. Minutes later, they were ordered to return to Earth immediately. Everything was confiscated. They were forced to sign ND as under threat of death. Roberto held Patricia as she began to shake. What is that crystalline object? It's the heart of the mother, Santiago answered in a distant tone. A source of stabilized antimatter energy. A technology that could solve every energy crisis on Earth. That's why they hid it. Oil, coal, gas, it would all be obsolete. Trillions of dollars were at stake. Suddenly, the hotel phone rang. Everyone froze. Leona answered with a shaking hand. She listened for 10 seconds, her face turning pale as snow. She hung up slowly. It was them. They know we're here. We have 5 minutes. Santiago grabbed the USB drive from Martin. We need to leak this now, before they silence us forever. They scrambled to pack. Leona led them through a narrow emergency exit onto the roof. The cold night wind hit their faces. Below, on the street, 3 black SUVs were already surrounding the hotel. Men in dark suits were pouring out. This way. Leona pointed to a makeshift bridge connecting to the next building. One by one, they crossed. Santiago looked down and saw the agents breaching the hotel. They were running out of time. After descending a fire escape and jumping into an old car Leona had hidden in an alley, they drove for 20 minutes, taking a zigzag route to lose any tail. They finally reached an abandoned warehouse in the industrial zone. We'll be safe here for a few hours, Leona said, opening boxes of satellite transmission gear. I have everything we need to broadcast. Are you going to send the evidence to the news? Roberto asked. No, Leona replied. I'm going to saturate the internet. Thousands of servers simultaneously. Torrents, P2P networks, distributed blockchain. They won't be able to delete it all. Santiago sat in front of a camera Leona had set up. I will speak. I will tell them the truth. Patricia knelt before her son. My love, once you do this, there is no turning back. Your life will change forever. Santiago took her hands. I know, Mom, but William gave his life for this. Now I have to finish it. The red light on the camera began to blink. Santiago looked directly into the lens with an authority that defied his age. My name is Santiago Morales. I am 4 years old, but I am also the reincarnation of William Rutledge, commander of the Apollo 20 mission. NASA has lied to you for decades. There are alien structures on the moon. There is technology that can change the world. And there is evidence of ancient extraterrestrial life that they have kept in the dark. As he spoke, Martin hit upload. The images of the moon structures, the video from inside the ship, and the classified blueprints began to flood the web. At coordinates 43 south, 11 west of the Tycho Crater, there are 47-meter metallic towers. In the Del Porte crater, a spaceship 3.8 kilometers long rests. And at the South Pole, in the Shackleton crater, a rectangular tunnel leads to preserved ancient technology. Santiago spoke for 5 minutes straight, revealing coordinate after coordinate, each backed by the visual evidence displayed on the screens. Humanity deserves the truth, the boy continued, his voice echoing in the empty warehouse. We are not alone. We never were. And the moon is the proof. Leona hovered over the laptop, transmitting to 2,847 servers simultaneously in 3, 201. The progress bars began to fill. 10%, 30%, 50%. Suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered and died. In the pitch black, the roar of heavy engines approached. They found us, Martin whispered. The screen read 87%. The transmission wasn't done. Outside, a booming voice amplified by a megaphone cut through the night. Come out with your hands up. There is no escape. Santiago stared at the screen. 93%, 95%. Just a few more seconds, please, Leona prayed. 98%. The warehouse doors were blown inward with a deafening blast. 99%. Transmission complete. 10 armed men rushed in, their tactical flashlights blinding the family. Behind them walked a woman in a sharp gray suit. She looked to be in her 50s, with short hair and an insignia Roberto recognized immediately, the National Security Agency. I am Director Margaret Collins, she said with cold authority. Shut down the equipment, now. Leona stepped between the woman and the laptop. It's too late. It's already out there. Right now, millions of people are downloading those files. Margaret smiled frostily. We know. That's why we're not here to arrest you. We're here to negotiate. Negotiate what? Roberto asked, confused. Your silence, your cooperation, your controlled disappearance from the public eye. Santiago stepped forward, looking tiny but standing tall against the armed agents. We won't be quiet. The world already knows. Margaret knelt to look him in the eye. Child, do you have any idea what you've unleashed? Chaos, panic, market collapses, religious wars. Humanity is not ready for this. Humanity will never be ready, according to you, Santiago retorted. There will always be an excuse to bury the truth. Martin checked his phone. It was exploding. Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, everything was saturated with the images. Hashtag MoonTruth and hashtag Apollo 20 Real were trending globally. It's viral, Martin said. Millions of downloads. You can't stop this. Margaret stood up, her composure finally cracking. We can discredit it. We'll call it CGI, a hoax, a conspiracy theory. People will forget in weeks. Leona laughed bitterly. Not when I have this. She pulled a small USB drive from her pocket. This contains the exact GPS coordinates of the Apollo 20 landing site. Any country with a lunar satellite can verify it for themselves. Margaret went pale. If you reveal those coordinates, you'll trigger a militarized space race. China, Russia, ... Everyone will rush to the moon to claim that tech. Exactly, Santiago said. And that will stop you from monopolizing it. Margaret signaled her men to lower their weapons. You're playing a dangerous game. There are forces much larger than the NSA interested in this. Like who? Roberta demanded. Corporations, governments, organizations that have invested trillions to maintain the energy status quo. They won't let a child and a few researchers destroy the world order. Santiago stepped closer to her. Let me tell you something, Director Collins. I know things even you don't know. I know what else is on the moon, and if you try to hurt us, I will reveal the secret of the Meridiani installation. Margaret recoiled as if she'd been struck. How? Coordinates 00. The exact point where the lunar meridian crosses. An underground facility so secret not even the president knows. The one you call Project Genesis. Absolute silence fell. Even the agents looked confused clearly. They weren't cleared for that level of information. Margaret was breathing heavily. That is Omega-level classification. It is impossible for you to know that. William discovered it in his last week of life. Santiago said, before you suicided him. Leona gasped. They killed him? Margaret didn't answer. Her silence was a confession. Patricia pulled Santiago into a protective embrace. You won't touch my son. Margaret composed herself. You have 48 hours. The leak will cause chaos, but it's manageable. However, if you mention Project Genesis, I cannot protect you. There are forces that eliminate witnesses without hesitation. She turned to leave, but Santiago called out, Wait, look at the sky tonight at 3:47 a.m. I'll send you the coordinates. You'll see something that will change your perspective. Margaret looked back, fearful and curious. What will I see? Santiago smiled enigmatically. You will discover that the mother isn't dead. She was only sleeping ... And she is waking up. Send me those coordinates and pray that you are wrong, Margaret Collins said before vanishing into the night. When the agents finally left, the warehouse fell into a heavy silence. Roberto turned to his son, his voice shaking. What did you mean when you said the mother is waking up? Santiago walked over to the laptop and opened an astronomical monitoring program. 3 weeks ago, lunar seismic sensors detected vibrations in the Del Porte crater. A constant frequency, a non-natural pattern. NASA classified it as a geological anomaly. Martin leaned in, staring at the data. But the moon has been geologically dead for millions of years. There shouldn't be any seismic activity at all. Exactly, Santiago confirmed. It's not geological. It's technological. The ship's antimatter core is reactivating. After 1.5 billion years, something finally woke it up. Leona sat down heavily. William always feared this. He said touching that core could trigger hibernation protocols. Patricia hugged her son tight. What does that mean? Is it dangerous? Santiago looked out the window toward the night sky. I don't know yet, but at 3:47 a.m., we'll find out. The ship is going to emit a signal that will travel into deep space. A signal to where? Roberto asked. To its origin? To the ones who built it? The weight of those words hit them like a ton of concrete. Martin checked his watch. It was 2:30 a.m. They had little more than an hour. Leona quickly set up a portable high-powered telescope she had kept hidden. We need to look at the exact spot. Give me the coordinates, Santiago, she urged. The boy closed his eyes, tapping into that deep, ancient memory. Del Porte Crater, 16 degrees north, 122 degrees east. Focus on the northeast rim of the ship. That's where the primary emitter is located. As they prepped the gear, Roberto's phone began buzzing incessantly. Social media was exploding. The hashtag lunar signal was going viral. Amateur astronomers around the world were reporting unusual electromagnetic emissions coming from the moon. The world is starting to notice, Roberto whispered. The signal began 12 hours ago, Santiago said. Weak at first, but it's peaking. At 3:47, it will reach full power. Patricia scrolled through her own phone, seeing videos from ham radio operators showing massive interference and reports from observatories detecting rhythmic electromagnetic pulses. The scientific community is in a frenzy, she said. NASA just released a statement 10 minutes ago. They're claiming it's just normal solar activity reflecting off the lunar surface. Leona laughed bitterly. Liars until the very end. The minutes ticked by with unbearable tension. 3:45 a.m. 2 minutes to go. Everyone took turns looking through the lens. 3:46 a.m. 1 minute. Leona hit record. The image showed the desolate gray surface of the Del Porte crater and the long cigar-shaped silhouette of the mother. 3:47 a.m. It happened. A flash of electric blue light erupted from the heart of the ship. It grew in intensity until a brilliant beam of light shot from the lunar surface into the deep black of space. It was visible to the naked eye, a perfect blue ray piercing the dark sky. Millions of people saw it. Thousands of phones captured it. Observatories confirmed the readings. The beam remained active for exactly 47 seconds, then vanished as abruptly as it appeared. Absolute silence. Santiago spoke in a soft, grave voice. The signal has been sent. Exact coordinates transmitted. Distance calculated. 940 light years. Roberto was trembling. What does that mean? It means, Santiago turned to his father, that in 940 years, someone will receive that message and know that the mother is still here, waiting. Patricia was sobbing. Why? Why now? Because the ship detected human activity getting too close. The recent lunar missions, the plans for permanent bases. Human technology has reached a critical level. The mother just sent a warning. Suddenly, Martin's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered cautiously. Dr. Ochoa. The voice of Director Collins crackled on the line. We all saw it. Confirm. What the hell just happened? Santiago took the phone. What just happened, Director, is that humanity just announced its presence to the universe. And now, all we can do is wait for the reply. 1 week later, the world had changed forever. The Morales family stood at an international press conference. Santiago, sitting between his parents, watched hundreds of journalists and scientists. The UN had called an emergency session. A coalition of space powers, China, the US, Russia, and Europe, had just announced a joint mission to investigate the mother. Leona Snyder had finally been vindicated. Her testimony and the undeniable evidence forced NASA to partially admit the truth. Apollo 20 was real. They had found something, and they had hidden it for decades. Martin Ochoa was now leading the international team to analyze the data. The governments could no longer deny the impossible. The world could no longer look away. NASA and governments across the globe had been forced to admit the truth they had buried for decades. Apollo 20 was real. Dr. Martin Ochoa now led an international scientific task force to analyze the flood of data. But the real moment of history happened when little Santiago Morales stepped up to the microphone at an international press conference. Hundreds of cameras flashed, broadcasting his small face to every corner of the planet. For years, they told us we were alone, Santiago began, his voice surprisingly clear. They told us the moon was just a dead rock. They lied because they were afraid. They were afraid the truth would change everything, and they were right. He paused, and the room fell into a heavy, absolute silence. But change doesn't have to be destructive. The technology inside the mother can solve our energy crisis. It can feed the world without pollution. It can take us to the stars, but only if we share it. Only if we cast aside our fear and greed. He looked directly into the lens of the main camera. William Rutledge gave his life to protect this secret. And now, through me, his mission is finally complete. Humanity finally knows its place in the universe. We are not alone. We never were. Even Margaret Collins, who just a week ago would have silenced the family forever, stepped to the podium. I've realized that the truth always finds its way, she admitted. She pledged that the U.S. government, alongside other nations, would maintain total transparency regarding the lunar findings. After the speech, Roberto took his son's hand. What happens to you now, Santiago? Will you go back to just being a boy? Santiago smiled, and for the first time in this long ordeal, it was a genuine, innocent smile. I'm Santiago, Dad. I'll always be Santiago. William finished his work through me. Now, I can just be me. But then his expression shifted. That old, serious light returned to his eyes. Though, there is one last thing you all must know. The room tensed up again. The signal the mother sent didn't just go into deep space, Santiago whispered. It activated something right here. On Earth? Martin stepped forward, his heart racing. What did it activate? There are other ships, other structures. Not just on the moon. Santiago pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and spread it out for the cameras. It was a map with 6 specific locations marked: Antarctica, the Bermuda Triangle, the Gobi Desert, the Mariana Trench, the Amazon, and the Sahara. There are artifacts buried in each of these places, hidden for millions of years. And the signal from the moon has just woken them up. A murmur of panic swept through the hall, but Santiago raised his hands. Don't be afraid. If these civilizations wanted to destroy us, they would have done it eons ago. They left these ships like seeds, waiting for us to evolve enough to find them, to deserve them. Leona Snyder leaned in. What is the next step, Santiago? Santiago looked up at the sky through the auditorium windows. The next step is for humanity to stop looking only at itself and start looking up. We have announced our presence to the universe. Now, the universe is watching. We must be ready for what comes next. 3 months later, the first international mission docked with the Mother. Inside, they found exactly what Santiago had described: antimatter tech, vast knowledge banks, and star maps of distant galaxies. But they also found a message, inscribed in every possible language and universal mathematics. To those who awaken, the universe is vast and ancient. You are young, but you show promise. These tools are your inheritance. Use them wisely. You are not alone. You never were. And soon, you won't be the only ones awake. Back at home, 5-year-old Santiago Morales watched the live feed from the lunar surface. He smiled. His mission as William was over, but his life as Santiago, the boy who changed the destiny of mankind, was only just beginning. And somewhere in the deep reaches of space, 940 light-years away, a signal traveled silently toward its destination. Waiting. Always waiting.